welcome to Time to Inspire Journal. We're here today in Narrowsburg, New York, on the Upper Delaware River at the Delaware Valley Arts Alliance with Rocky Pinciotti.
There you
go. He is the Curator and Gallery Director here at DVAA, as most people say. And you're in the middle of your 12th year, getting ready for your 13th year.
Right. This summer I'll be beginning my 13th year.
Putting art on these walls. You know these walls probably better than anybody in the Upper Delaware Valley.
That's true.
But each show is brand new. It's always a brand new hanging, always a brand new
experience. Yes. And problem solving is the funnest part of the show.
But I have worked a little bit with Rocky, and I know I helped him a little bit last year with some shows. And I know that one of the things that I hear the artists say a lot is that you make them feel so comfortable, both with their work and also hanging a show, which I know can be extremely stressful for the director as well as the artist.
Yes.
But you have a real knack of doing that, making them feel comfortable, making them feel valued, and their work valued.
Thank you.
And I know that comes from experience, but I think more it comes from just your desire for people to be shown at their best, their work at their best. And because I know you're also a teacher.
Right.
At SUNY Sullivan.
Yep.
So how do those two things kind of work with you? I know you do both at the same time and some other things as well.
Yes.
So what's life like kind of doing that?
Well, the main thing is that most of what I do, I'm lucky because it all revolves around art. Pretty much. All the different jobs that I do, I have a handful of part-time jobs, which can be stressful in itself, but not because they're all really about creativity and about art. Truthfully. The job here is tremendous because it's like Christmas once a month.
Yeah.
And, people come in with their work and they want to exhibit it in the most beautiful way that they can. Teaching obviously is about art because I teach a handful of different classes it's a community college, and the students are very diverse student body there. Even though we're up here in the Catskills, we have a lot of kids that come from the city to go to a small school upstate for a 2-year program. It's very reasonable for them. And basically my classes were all making art together, more or less. Or my teaching is kind of anything I'm trying to teach them, I link to a project. I learned early on that when kids are in school, at least in the graphic arts department, they want to make stuff.
Right.
They don't want to sit there and learn.
Don't give me the terminology.
They want to make stuff. And that was the biggest revelation I had teaching at community college, was that it made it easy for me because I love when people make stuff and feedback and things like that. So they relate that it really has a lot to do with art. The program that I work on in the summer at this camp is all about art. The other two places that I work with in the city pretty much are revolving on art or education kind of thing. So that's the link between all that I do. And every now and then I go, it's a little overwhelming, but I get up in the morning, sometimes at 3:45 to take the bus into the city to work. And I just take a deep breath and go, but it's a good job. It's a good job. So it's all and I try to keep it. I look at it that way, which also makes me better at whatever it is I'm doing or have to do that day.
Right. So when did you learn that you like to make stuff? And when did that start?
Going back, my uncle, I come from an Irish-Italian family, grew up in Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, and my mom's Irish part of the family was out in Iowa. We grew up in Toledo with my dad and his siblings and my grandma and grandpa. So I really came more from this Italian side of the family, and art was kind of like a given. Oh, of course you're Michelangelo, you're Leonardo. It's, you're the Italian part of the creativity is a given,
It's in there.
And so I had an uncle who was an artist, and the earliest memory is he was still living at home with my grandma and grandpa, and did this beautiful mural on the wall of his patron saint Gabriel, which and there was a couple of weird things. One, like it wasn't on a canvas; it was on the wall. It was a beautiful painting, and that was kind of the beginning. Growing up in grade school, it just seemed that I liked to draw. I could draw. I drew a fire scene in first grade, and everyone was like beside themselves.
It's like,
And yeah,
it's
and
the Italian.
it's the Italian, I guess. But even though my dad was a sports guy, he played for the White Sox for a short amount of time. He had this artistic bent to himself as well. But starting little from drawing, I remember we used to draw the comics, copy the comics.
Oh, right.
And so growing up, art was kind of always part of it. But also there's another part of me in 8th grade when the Beatles were out. We started a band, which there's a music component of what I do. But just that general, creativity part of it.
Right.
My mom was always singing at home, so the music part of it that came sort of from her in a sense, the music part of it. But I just found that when you're I actually had this sort of divide where because my dad was in sports, he pushed all of us into sports, and I went the other direction, of course. So it was in one way, a very tumultuous childhood. But I gravitated toward it, and at some point then he began to support the fact that I was a musician and I could draw.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend whose father was a photographer for the local paper. We used to shoot photographs.
Wow.
And but so in grade school I remember doing art a bit. When I got to high school, I went to a brand new high school that only had freshmen. And then the next year was freshmen and sophomore. They opened this brand new high school. So we were the upper class all through that. And they didn't even have an art program. But I was doing mostly music at that point. So in my life, it was kind of, even though I always did sort of both, there was a point where it was mostly music and I dabbled a little bit of art. And then at some point then I left the music world and went to college. In college I did both music and art. And so it kind of went back and forth quite a bit until I moved out east and was in a couple of bands in New York City, but came out to do my graduate work in New York, got a job at a place that made neon artworks.
Right.
So the thread was kind of always there. The neon became a tool that was in my toolbox in what I made, and really because it was this, neon art was this medium that not a lot of people were doing. The handful of people that I knew that came through there or I found in other places, when we would want to have a show, we would put up our own show. We would have to put it up because galleries would go, wow, you got to plug it in? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
How does it hang on the wall? And we worked as kind of wasn't a tight group, but it was this loose group of artists from Washington and Ohio and New York that did neon, and we would sort of organize a lot of shows ourselves. So that, when I tell people, when they say, well, how do you know how to hang up shows? We had to do it for ourselves quite often, a number of years hanging shows. And they were complicated shows because sometimes it was just a tube, sometimes it was tubes on a painting, sometimes they were very complicated pieces.
Right.
So that's where coming into to this job, they said, well, have you ever hung a show before? And I went, well, look at my resume, all those places.
I only make art I have to hang myself.
Yes, yeah, I had to hang it myself, so it's all part of it. So,
No.
and then you know, working here. That's the other part of you say people are comfortable here when they come in, and they. It's a good experience, is because I literally take it as it's my own show. I know how they feel. You know, sometimes you go into something and you have to deal with somebody in a business or something, and they don't have a clue. You know, it's like, okay, you're the salesman and this guy's the production manager, and they've never had their jobs, and they really, you know, and there's tension there because of that. They go, what are you doing? In here, I know exactly what people are doing. I sort of can tell what they think. I sort of feel the direction.
Right.
And I, as an artist, I want new things. Ellen was just here today. We have a show coming up. She's a ceramic person. She has these wild ceramics. And I said, Ellen, you know, if you think of anything else, let me know. We're going to put a big poster in the front window from a billboard she had.
Right.
You know, it's a small art center, but we try and do really exciting things here. And I think that's important because when people come to the shows, you know, I think we're known for having good quality work here. And then more good quality people apply.
Right.
And I've had, I could probably count them on one hand, artists who come in and, you know, I can tell from the get-go that this could be a problem. So I know I have to handle that differently.
Right.
And I was just saying today, you know, part of my thing is let's put it up on the wall and see how it looks. And you know, from we're working together, go put it up. Let's put it up. We think we want to do that. Put it up. And then we kind of go, well, actually, what we hung on that wall should go over here. Actually, I have no problem switching gears because it's a very visual medium, not only in the artwork but how you hang it. It's all visual.
Right.
So I'm good at, you know, going. Let's try this. Let's try that. How about this? And I listen to the artists. They know their artwork. I know the rooms, and. So that's, I'm okay with however it starts to play out, and I'm very attentive to the artists because I've been there as well.
Yeah, you're making stuff with their stuff. Within the space, you're making a show. You know,
and after all these years, I didn't, you know, it's obvious, but I didn't really look at it that way. That we're taking, you know, beautiful things, individual beautiful things, and putting them together in an overall beautiful thing. We're creating this whole other package with it. And, you know, when people come in the gallery, what do they see? What do they see first? What's grouped together? You know, is it hard? It's a feng shui thing. Is it, you know, look at it and it just, at the moment, is it just all a jumble, or does it have some kind of order to it? Those things, you know, those things are important.
Right. It's really interesting, you know, having you talk about that. We've talked some, but not a whole lot about, you know, what you've done and where you're. But it's interesting how all those things, and I don't know all the mediums you work in either, but obviously you've worked in more than what we've talked about.
Right.
So that gives you familiarity with whoever comes in to do a show, whatever their medium is. Plus you have the teaching that informs working with people that are making things and making sure that they're comfortable so that they can make things.
Right.
I mean, with all this, it just seems to keep building on itself. What's the future? What's the? I mean, it sounds like you got plenty going on, but what, you know, I'm sure there are ideas of what you'd like to do, what you'd like to add on.
There is this giant big idea out there, actually, that I would like to do, sort of a Bauhaus kind of center here in Sullivan County. I'm playing the lottery. I may get there. I didn't win last week. But
next week.
But maybe next year, yes.
Okay.
But the idea of bringing, like, sort of all of those things, along with the fact of, you know, I can't really tell you how I ended up here in Sullivan County. Things just sort of aligned when we bought living in New York City for 28, 29 years. At some point you kind of go, well, let's look upstate. Can we buy something? I run into it all the time. New York transplants that, had a weekend house and eventually moved up there, which is what we did. The prices were reasonable up here. It's beautiful. We have a river. We have, and when we stumbled upon this area, there was this art center.
Ah.
For a lot of artists, they go, well, we're looking for some place to go. Is there is there culture? And this Delaware Valley Arts Alliance has been here for 45 years, I think now. And Elaine, brought this to the community, and it's flourished all that time. And just like some place that has good schools for artists, there's a place like this in Sullivan County.
Right.
There have been some others that have come and gone, but we still have a couple of them left, and that brings those people, to this area, which then builds on itself.
Right. So, what is this? An art school?
Sort of. So it's a combination of it's not anything right now, but the concept of that, a place where people could go, and it has a little bit of everything, which is a lot to ask, but it's a resort. It's a beautiful gardens. It's a they have places to stay there as well. It has artist residencies, and it's an event space, and a place that also can kind of service artists or people who want to enjoy the arts. Would have a permanent plein air program for people to come, and the space would actually be sculpted and gardened and stuff. So we're looking at the water lilies. Come on, Monet built his own world there, and he painted it.
Right.
That kind of idea. So there's a lot of good things out there that could be, but. Other than that, I've been doing a lot of teaching, and I still love this job here.
Yeah. Well, that's going to keep you busy.
It does keep me busy.
All right. Well,
It does
good.
keep me busy.
Well, thank you for talking with us here at Time to Inspire Journal. We really appreciate it. Been talking to Rocky Pinciotti.
Yep.
Got it right? Or Pinciotti.
Pinciotti. We're going back to the Italian roots.
There we go. As well as the Italian, we don't want to,
And the Irish roots.
That's right. It's a great mix.
It is a good mix.
He's a great guy, and thank you for talking with us.
And thank you for coming and helping the gallery. We didn't mention the fact that you have been coming and helping me hang these shows here, and it's been a blessing.
Oh, thank you.
You've got an eye, you've got an attitude, or a non-attitude, I would say, and you've been a tremendous amount of help, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I'll pay you later. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.